Today we'd like to talk to you about frost-free hydrants. These are tools that farmers and ranchers have been using for almost 100 years. It was invented in 1929, and you might find a need for this in your landscape at home. So there are a couple things about it that I'd like to point out. The main thing to know is that it's frost-free because the water drains out of a small hole down here at the bottom of the hydrant. So we usually bury the hydrant at least 2 feet deep. In Oklahoma, our soils don't freeze all that deeply, if at all, so we don't have to worry about it too much. But typically a water line is 18 inches in the ground at the least, and very often deeper, especially where it's important to be deeper because of the frost line. So the water weeps out of this little drain hole here, and that's what makes the top part of the hydrant frost-free. There's no water in the top part of the hydrant. So the handle to turn the water on is up at the top of the hydrant, but the valve is down here. So the water leaks out of this little hole. There is no water then in the rest of the hydrant, and so therefore it doesn't freeze. So when you're installing a frost-free hydrant, it's a great idea to put gravel around this little drain hole and at least 3 inches above so that that hole stays nice and clean and clear and the water drains out. That's how a frost-free hydrant works. The other thing I'd like to mention is that any component in the landscape is potential for cross-connection, is potential to contaminate the potable water drinking supply. So we want to try to limit that as much as possible. You know, if water comes out of a pipe, it can go back in a pipe. And so we don't want our irrigation water or the water that's in our garden hose to go back into the water main and contaminate the potable water system. So this is an atmospheric vacuum breaker. And this can be used to keep the water that's in the garden hose in the garden hose. This atmospheric vacuum breaker will keep the water from flowing backwards. It's called back siphonage. In case there's something causing back siphonage, this atmospheric vacuum breaker will keep that from happening. So we talked about the atmospheric vacuum breaker preventing cross connection. This little drain hole at the bottom is another potential problem. This could also cause water to go back into the pipe. So there are newer models where the drain hole is not at the bottom, but it's at the top. And we'll show you that in a minute. So if you're going to use this model where the drain hole is at the bottom, you should have it on an irrigation system or some system that has a backflow prevention device already on the system. So you need to keep that drain hole free so that the water drains out. And you also need to try to protect the water system by having this installed where there is a backflow prevention device, like on your irrigation system, or adding an atmospheric vacuum breaker like this to at least keep the water from going backwards in the device. So if you're going to hook up your hydrant to a potable water supply, if you don't have a backflow prevention device, you should consider using one of these newer hydrants that has a different way of draining the water out of the hydrant. So when we turn this on, you can see the water leaks out of here, and we pull that down to allow water to go into the garden hose so that we can utilize it. And then when we're done utilizing the water, of course, we return the hydrant off. Now, to get the water out of the hydrant, we let this run for 30 seconds. So rather than have the water draining out of the bottom, through probably a Venturi effect, the water is getting pulled out of the hydrant and drained out of the top. And so in this way, we're eliminating that cross-connection problem that could be that drain hole at the bottom. And so this is what you want to use if you're doing a system that does not have a backflow prevention device. Also, we should always remove the garden hose in the winter time to help make this frost-free as well. So as you can see, with the garden hose on there, it's trapping water in the hydrant. And so in the winter time, we want to make sure to remove that garden hose to make this be as frost-free as it can.
hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.